My coworker took my code, claimed it was his, and got a $15,000 bonus. I let it happen. Then I quietly rewrote the backend to flag his name on every crash error. 3 weeks later, the app went down during a live demo. The CEO yelled, "Who did this?" I just said, "Check the logs." Now they're checking everything. I work in backend engineering at a mid-sized SaaS company. Not huge, not tiny, the kind of place where things fall through the cracks, especially credit. I've been there 3 years. I'm not flashy. I'm the guy who fixes things quietly. I'm the one who picks up after messes and builds tools no one notices until they stop working. There's this guy, Trevor. He joined about a year and a half ago. Younger, loud, dressed better than most of us. Spoke with confidence. Liked to say things like, "We should loop in leadership and let's build momentum." The kind of guy who plays the game. I didn't mind him at first. We weren't friends, but I helped him get up to speed. He asked me a lot of questions early on. I figured he was just new. The real shift came when we were assigned to the same sprint last quarter. It was a hard push to build a new feature, a smart caching layer for our app's analytics dashboard. It wasn't exciting work, but it was tricky. I volunteered to take on the hard part, the logic behind the caching mechanism, how it handled updates, and made sure it scaled without blowing up our infrastructure costs. I worked weekends. I skipped lunches. I wrote all of it from scratch, a lot of trial and error, a lot of quiet fixing. One morning, about a week after deployment, I joined a company-wide Zoom call. CEO was there. Marketing, sales, engineering. Everyone. They were congratulating the dev team on the new feature, saying how smooth it ran, how it cut load time by 60%. I felt good inside. Then Trevor's face popped up on screen, his camera on, smiling. The CTO said, "Special thanks to Trevor for leading the caching optimization work. Truly brilliant." He said, "Thank you," like it was nothing. I froze. I didn't even know how to react. I looked through the Git history just to be sure I wasn't going insane. My commits, my architecture, my notes. He had taken my final commits, added a few comments, moved some files around, and pushed them from his branch. The way our repo was set up, it wasn't obvious. I had been cleaning up other bugs when he did it. I didn't notice until it was too late. Later that week, word got around he got a bonus, $15,000, for the project leadership, quietly processed by HR. I heard it from someone in finance over drinks, not officially. I didn't confront him. I just nodded when he smiled at me in meetings. He thought I didn't know. That was the worst part. The smug confidence. Like I didn't matter. Like I was just some background noise while he played star. I went home that night and didn't sleep. Not out of anger. Just disbelief. And something colder, calculation. So I made a plan. Not a big, dramatic one. Just an edit. The system logs errors in a centralized way. Every crash or failure dumps metadata into our logging infrastructure. Timestamps, version numbers, user sessions. I added one small thing to our backend error handler. A field called origin_ID. Normally, it tagged whoever deployed the build. I changed it so that if the code in question came from a specific path, Trevor's modules, it would always log his employee ID, no matter who merged it. Subtle. Quiet. Took me maybe 15 minutes. 3 weeks later, our sales team scheduled a live demo with a high-profile client. They were showing off the analytics dashboard, the very feature he stole. Everything was live, real-time queries, load testing under pressure. I knew that code. I knew it hadn't been tested under concurrent session spikes. It was duct tape and optimism. He rushed it. 15 minutes into the demo, everything crashed. The dashboard froze. The screen glitched out on the client's monitor. Total failure. Panic on the call. CTO muted himself and started pinging everyone. The CEO asked one question. Who wrote this part of the system? I was already looking at the logs. Every error flagged one ID. Trevor's. I forwarded the crash log without comment. 1 minute later, the CTO responded, "We're looking into it. Logs are pointing to code under Trevor's module path." Then the room got very, very quiet. And I just kept looking at the logs, sipping my coffee. They didn't ask me anything. Not then. But 2 days later, the CTO scheduled one-on-one. Not just with me, with everyone Trevor had worked with. They started going through his projects, his commit history, his PRs. HR got involved. So did audit. I don't know what'll happen yet, but they're checking everything. And I didn't say a word. I thought the fallout would be quick, but it dragged. After the crash, Trevor went quiet. He still showed up to stand-ups, still smiled in meetings, but it looked forced. The CTO stopped calling on him. You could feel it. People were waiting, watching. His confidence started to shake. I stayed quiet. I did my work. I watched the repo like a hawk. And I noticed something strange. Trevor stopped pushing code altogether. Instead, he started commenting on other people's pull requests. Useless stuff like looks good or vague suggestions that didn't make sense. He was trying to stay visible, trying to look involved. But the engineers knew. We all knew. He wasn't doing anything. 2 weeks later, an internal audit team showed up. I'd never seen that before. They weren't IT. They were compliance people. Suits. They started asking weird questions. Who wrote what? Who signed off on deployments? How our Git permissions were managed? I got pulled into a meeting with one of them. They asked how long I'd been working on the caching module. I told them the truth. Since the beginning, I didn't point fingers. I just answered what they asked. Then they showed me something. An internal doc Trevor had submitted for his bonus request. It was a project summary with timelines, scope, and key challenges. All of it worded like he had built the backend from the ground up. He even included a flowchart, my flowchart. He had screen captured a draft diagram from a private Slack message I sent weeks before and slapped his name on it. I didn't even know he had saved it. I didn't react. I just looked at the auditor and said, "That's not his work." That's when things really turned. They froze all deployments from Trevor's branch. Suddenly, he wasn't on the schedule. His Jira tickets disappeared. No one said anything officially, but the silence was heavy. That Friday, I overheard him in the hallway outside the office kitchen. He was on the phone. I only caught parts of it, but the tone stuck with me. They're trying to pin this on me. Someone's messing with the logs. I almost laughed. He was panicking. He still didn't get it. The logs weren't fake. They were real. They were just finally telling the truth. The CTO pulled me into another meeting. He asked more direct questions this time. Who had access to what? Who did the actual code? What testing we did before pushing live? I answered, playing calm. No drama. Later that night, I checked my inbox. There was an invite to a special engineering review panel. Required attendance. Monday morning. 5 names on the invite. Mine, the CTO, 1 other senior engineer, 1 HR rep, and Trevor. Something was coming, but it didn't stop there. That weekend, my Slack DM started pinging. 2 engineers from another team reached out. Quietly, carefully. One of them said something that stuck with me. I think he's done this before. He sent me a link to an old internal wiki page from a previous project. A different feature, months before I even joined. Trevor's name was on it as lead engineer. But the code? When I checked the commit history, different author. Someone who left the company last year. Quietly. No LinkedIn update. No goodbye message. I started digging. And I found a pattern. Same setup every time. Trevor got assigned to something important. Someone else did the actual build. Trevor came in late in the project cycle, made cosmetic changes, restructured a few files, and took credit. Submitted nice-looking documents to leadership. And somehow, the other devs got moved off the project, reassigned, or just left. It wasn't an accident. It was a system. He had been stealing credit since day one, and this time, he picked the wrong person to steal from. By Monday morning, I wasn't just angry anymore. I was ready. Monday morning, I walked into the conference room early. HR was already there, typing on a laptop. No one said anything when I came in. Just a nod. The CTO arrived next, followed by Trevor. He looked tired, pale. His shirt was wrinkled. He nodded at me like we were still on good terms, like we were still coworkers. I didn't nod back. We waited. The last person to walk in was someone I didn't expect. Elena. She had been on the dev team a year ago. Smart, quiet, sharp with system architecture. She left suddenly. No big announcement. Just gone. I assumed burnout or a better job. But now she was back, sitting at the far end of the table, opening a manila folder. No laptop, just papers. The CTO introduced her as a temporary consultant for the investigation. She didn't even look at Trevor. She looked at me, and she said calmly, "I believe you." I wasn't sure what that meant until she pulled out printed commit logs, diagrams, notes, screenshots from Slack, messages Trevor had sent to her a year ago during their last joint project, and then emails, HR reports, a resignation letter. Her resignation letter. She never quit. She was pushed. After she confronted Trevor for taking credit for her infrastructure design, he went to leadership and said she was difficult, non-collaborative, and unreliable under pressure. She had filed a formal complaint. It was buried. Nothing happened. She left instead. But now she had come back. She had receipts. Copies she kept on her personal drive. Names, dates, side-by-side comparisons of code before and after Trevor's edits. All of it. And then came the second twist. The HR rep, Susan, stood up and quietly slid a piece of paper across the table to the CTO. It was a letter. Not from her. From legal. A former intern from last summer had filed a complaint. Trevor had taken her code too. Not just taken it, he'd reused a large block of her algorithm, changed the function names, and passed it off as machine learning optimization in one of his demo decks. That deck had gone to a client. It was the foundation for a contract we closed months ago, a contract now in review. Legal was already involved. I looked at him then. He was shaking, hands under the table, breathing shallow. He tried to say something, but no one asked him to. The CTO looked like he'd aged 5 years in a minute. HR said they'd be following up. But Elena? She just stared at him. Cold. Still. Then she looked at me. "We're not the only ones," she said. "There are more." She was right. By Tuesday, whispers started spreading. A designer reached out to me and said Trevor had taken credit for a prototype she had built from scratch. Someone from QA said he always rerouted bug reports through his own dashboard to make it look like he was fixing things himself. Even a junior engineer admitted Trevor had once warned him not to overshadow the team lead. This wasn't one mistake. It was a career built on theft, and the company was just starting to see how deep it went. Still no action. No emails. No announcement. Trevor still had his job. And that's when I realized if they weren't going to fix it fast, I would have to do something else. Not just for me, but for everyone he buried on his way up. After that meeting, I waited. A week passed. 2. Trevor still had his job. Still came in, though quieter now. He stopped showing up to stand-ups. People avoided him. But his badge still worked. His name was still on Slack. The company wasn't doing anything public. They were stalling. HR was reviewing. Legal was involved. Leadership was monitoring. Nothing moved. Meanwhile, Elena and I started talking more. Not just about what happened, but how often it had happened to others. She had a list. Names of people who left quietly like she did. Engineers, designers, interns. People who didn't want to fight or didn't know how. Most of them had no idea Trevor was the reason they were passed over, removed, or shut out. So I made a decision. I wrote an email, not to HR, not to the CTO, to everyone. A company-wide email, plain subject line, credit, ownership, and integrity. I laid it all out. I attached evidence, commits, timeline logs, copies of the project docs. I included links to pull requests side-by-sides, file histories. I walked through how the caching module worked, who built what, and when Trevor's edit started, I didn't ask them to believe me. I showed them. Then I added the last part, that I had edited the error handler to include code, origin metadata, because I knew someone else would take credit again. And I had kept that change quiet, not for revenge at first, but because I stopped trusting the system to protect the people doing the real work. I said I'd accept whatever consequences they thought I deserved for not speaking up sooner, for letting it happen, for letting it go on for years. Then I hit send. The email hit inboxes at 9:02 a.m. on a Wednesday. By 9:11, my phone buzzed. It was the CTO. He asked if I had a few minutes. I walked into a different room this time. Not HR, not a quiet side room. The executive conference room. The CEO was there. So was legal. So was Elena. And Trevor. He was already crying. No yelling. No confrontation. Just papers. An NDA. A termination form. A choice. Resign now or be fired for cause. He didn't say a word. He just signed. Later that day, an internal announcement went out. Effective immediately, Trevor, redacted, is no longer with the company. We are reviewing past projects to ensure proper recognition and attribution. No mention of why, but everyone already knew. Elena was offered a full-time return. She said no. She'd moved on, but she thanked me. Said this time, she felt like she'd been heard. As for me, they offered me a promotion. Lead engineer. Bigger title. Bigger salary. I turned it down. I stayed, but I asked for something else, a review board. One engineer from every team. Anonymous reporting system. Mandatory attribution tracking for every commit. And full transparency for bonus requests tied to project work. They agreed. Not because they wanted to, because they had no choice. Now, things are different. Slower, maybe, but cleaner. Credit goes where it belongs. People speak up more. Juniors don't hide their work. No more fear of being erased by someone louder. As for Trevor, last I heard, he was applying to startups, smaller companies, places that don't ask too many questions. I thought about reaching out to warn them, but I didn't. He'll do it again, and someone will catch him, just like I did. I'm not proud that I stayed quiet at first. I should have said something sooner, but I don't regret how it ended. Not anymore. He built his whole career stealing code. I made sure the last line of his career had his name on every crash. And now, the logs never lie.